And back in those days, we never had any interesting assessment tasks. We only had essays for assessment. So we wrote essay after essay after essay. I'm really excited to make this video. I think it's going to be heaps of fun, and I was initially asked to speak about the 11th or 12th grade because I teach both, and I noticed there's also nobody to do 10th, so I might talk about sort of all three of those grades, 10, 11 and 12, because there aren't very many high school teachers on YouTube. And I need to explain something else. In the Southern Hemisphere, or in Australia and New Zealand at least, the teachers don't just teach one grade. I'm employed as an English teacher and I can teach anything from 7 through to 12, from year 7 through to year 12. We say year as well here in Australia. In New South Wales we do anyway. And so your allocation, what you're allocated every year will change. So typically a classroom teacher will have 5 different classes and it will be an assortment of different year levels, different grade levels. So I'm qualified to teach 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and I get a mixture of them each year. This year I have a leadership role as well. My teaching load is diminished, and so I'm teaching year 12, year 11, and year 7. That's it. Normally I teach 5 different classes, but this time it's 4 classes because I have 2 classes of year 11. Anyway, that's just the background. So something else that you probably don't know about me is that I am Australian and I was born here and I live here, but for 4 years of my life, my whole family moved to our closest neighbour, Papua New Guinea, and we lived there. My family lived there for 10 years, but I was only there for 4 of those years. So from grades 9 through to 12, 9, 10, 11, 12, I was in Papua New Guinea, and I was an expatriate child. So I went to the international schools. I went to Port Moresby International High School, and we called it POM High for short because the airport at Port Moresby is POM, P-O-M. And I have very, very fond memories. I was very proud of my school. All of the expat kids went to this school because it had international levels of education, and a lot of national Papua New Guineans went there as well, especially politicians' children and people like that. So I had such a rich social experience living in Papua New Guinea for those 4 years, and made wonderful friends from all over the world, and it was just a really multicultural, positive and happy place for me. I really loved my time there. So I guess I'll start with the classrooms. Okay, so Papua New Guinea is in the tropics and it's a really amazing nation. It's so diverse in its terrain, and its climate is very, very humid, and so our classrooms were all elevated. We had single buildings that had maybe, from memory, like 2 or 3 classrooms in each building, although I'm now remembering like a big long line of classrooms for some of our core subjects. And I remember maths was way up the back in different buildings, and you had a long walk to go. And I feel like it was uphill. I don't know if anyone from Pom High is watching. Anyone, let me know. Maybe I'll send this to my classmates because we have a Facebook Messenger group from the class of 91, which is really cool. Anyway, it's funny when you start thinking about your high school days and all these memories start coming back that you haven't even thought about for ages. So back to the classrooms. The classrooms were elevated. They were on like stilts, and that was really great because the air would flow underneath. We did not have any air conditioning back then. I don't know if they have it now, but the classrooms were also, so there was sort of like, if you imagine the wall, there was a section that went up maybe about 1/3 of the height of the wall. That was sort of these planks, and the planks were not joined like this. The planks were sort of alternating like this, so that there was a gap in between, so the air could flow through that way as well. And then above, so that's about that went up to about 1/3 of the height of the wall, and then above that to the ceiling, from what I can remember, was louvers. So we'd have the louvers open, and then we had ceiling fans. Every classroom had ceiling fans so that the air could just keep flowing. Yes, we did get hot. We had, our uniform was just this cotton wraparound skirt with a Papua New Guinean design, and then a blue like blouse, I guess, or shirt for the boys. Then in senior school, like in years 11 and 12, we were allowed to wear any colour bottoms, like we could wear a skirt, shorts, pants, whatever, in a plain block colour, and then we had to wear a white t-shirt or polo shirt. So yeah, anyway, That was the uniform, but the skirt had to be long to be respectful of Papua New Guinean culture, so the wraparound skirt was quite long. So number 2, describe your teachers. So I'm going to go with my year 11 and 12 teachers because I remember them more. So I took German, and my German teacher is one of my clearest memories, and her name was Frau Eickhoff, and I have tried to find her. I don't know where in the world she is. I've tried stalking Facebook. I can't find her, but she was very encouraging of me, and I really appreciated it. So by the time we got to year 11 and 12, there were only 3 of us in the class. And one of them was my good friend Leslie, and the other one was Abby. Oh, well, there's a friend question later. I'll save it for then. But there were only 3 of us in the class. And so we got really, really special tuition, I suppose, from her because she was able to devote the time. And she was just really, really caring and really wanted us to do well. Another teacher that I had was my English teacher, Mr. Boardman. And I was always a bit upset because I considered myself to be pretty good at English, and I think I was, but I never could get into the top class. I was just out of the top class. I was in B, English B. And so I had Mr. Boardman, and back in those days we never had any interesting assessment tasks. We only had essays for assessment. So we wrote essay after essay after essay, and I didn't know how to do it well. And my parents never went to university, so they couldn't really help me. And Mr. Boardman didn't really, back in those days, the teachers weren't really taught about scaffolding and showing model answers, sample answers. And so we were just in the dark. Everything was a stab in the dark, and you just did the best you could. But I still loved English. I just loved it. What else did I do? Oh, science. I took biology, and I had Mr. Muddle, and he was so cool. And he used to teach, prior to Port Moresby, he taught in Jamaica. And so he was, had lots of stories about Jamaica. And I remember thinking that was really exotic and interesting. And he used to wear these really cool, shirts, sort of tropical, interesting shirts as well. But we used to get in trouble, my friend and I, Nydia, because it wasn't me, though. It was her. She would talk. She was a talker, and she would talk and talk and talk and talk and talk. And we got in trouble a few times from Mr. Muddle. And he told us that when he was in Jamaica, he used to get called Mr. Confused because the Jamaican kids would get muddle mixed up with confused. So they'd call him Mr. Confused, which I thought was funny. And I remember that. So English, maths, science, German. Oh, maths. Who was my maths teacher in the senior school? Oh, Mrs. Messer, I think. She was from England. So the other cool thing was we had teachers from all over the world who taught us. And that was an education in itself, just listening to them talk and their stories and all different stuff like that. So I was very lucky to have that experience. English, maths, science, German, history. Oh, history. I had the deputy teach me history, Mrs. Karari, and she was also the deputy of the school. So she was very busy. I remember she was called away a lot from our class, and we had this textbook, and we were a very good class. I don't know how many were in the class, maybe even up to 20 perhaps. Felt like a bigger class. We were very independent, so she would just sort of leave us with the textbook and we'd go ahead and answer the questions. But we also had some really, really interesting discussions in history, and I just loved it. And I loved it so much that I took history as my minor when I went to university. And I took photography because I just wanted a subject that wasn't so intense, academically intense, and I really enjoyed photography. I had Mrs. McKee for photography, and she was really nice, but she offended me one day because when we were developing in the darkroom, we had to do this project about trees, and I had gone around taking all these pictures of trees. I don't know why I thought that would be interesting, but when we were in the developing room and I brought out my prints to show her, she said to me, "Have you had your eyes checked? These are out of focus." And I was like, they're not out of focus. I mean, I didn't say this. I was never disrespectful, but I thought, they're not out of focus. What's she on about? Anyway, she said, "I think you need to go and get your eyes checked because if you think these are in focus, they're not." Anyway, that was year 12, and I did nothing about it because I was all upset about it, offended that she had said that. There was something wrong with my eyes. But the next year at university, I was sitting next to my friend in the lecture theatre, and it wasn't a particularly big lecture theatre, but there was an overhead transparency projected on the wall at the front, and my friend was writing down notes from it, and she said, can't you see the screen, the words on the screen? And I said, "No, can you see that?" because I just thought, I don't know what I thought. I thought maybe she was just copying down as she was listening. I don't know, but I couldn't see it. So I took myself off. I'd already left home, of course, and I was living at the college campus, and I took myself off to the town in the college bus because I, of course, had no car, and went to see an optometrist for the very first time in my life. And I remember being freaked out when he was an older man, and it was a really weird, dingy kind of office, and he had to turn the lights off to, I don't know why, he turned the lights off. Anyway, he turned off the lights and like came right up close to me with his torch like this, and I was like, oh, really creeped out. But anyway, turned out I needed glasses. So that was the first time from when I was like 18 and a half, I guess, to now when I need glasses. I'm not wearing my glasses today because I'm using my ring light and it doesn't go well with glasses, so I've got my contacts in. Random story. Okay, so they were my teachers. That's question 2. Question 3, something I remember learning that year. I remember a lot from biology. I don't know why. I found it really interesting. I did the International Baccalaureate and it's quite rigorous. It's really rigorous. And from what I can remember, all of the weightings, like the whole weighting of your results come from that one final external exam which gets sent off to, I don't know, London or somewhere to be marked. And I am not good at exams, and I bombed out in my biology exam, and I had actually studied the wrong topic, or the topic that they asked about I hadn't studied for some reason. I don't know what. I just sort of don't know. And I didn't get a very good result. And Mr. Messer was so upset because I was like first and second in the class. And yeah, I let him down. Sorry, Mr. Messer. I remember a lot of my English stuff that I learned because I just loved it so much. Some of the German, I remember experiences like being in the... We read this book in German called... Oh gosh, I can't remember the name of it now. But I remember bits and pieces of that story. And I remember being really proud of myself to be able to read a book in German. Now I could barely even say a sentence to you in German. So I've forgotten a lot of that. But yeah, I enjoyed learning it. Maths was not my strong suit. Even though I did do advanced maths, so I don't really remember much of that. And history was interesting, although I did find with the curriculum that we did modern history over and over and over. Like we did the World Wars over and over and over again in year 9, 10, 11 and 12. I felt like I was sick of it. And I wanted to learn like more different things because I found history really interesting. Anyway, number 4, something interesting and memorable from that year or those years. Year 12 is a very formative time in your life because I remember I was really thin and I would only take, it was hot, so you weren't hungry much. It was always really hot and humid, and I only would take an apple, much to my mother's concern. I would only take an apple for lunch, and I was super, super thin, but I was fine. I was happy. I was fine. I wasn't, there wasn't a problem. I was just really, really thin. In that year, I think you become really close with your friends. Like I became really close to my best friend in particular. I don't know, we just, talked about the boys and different things we were going to do when we finished school. And living internationally is especially in a place like Papua New Guinea, it wasn't very safe for girls to be in town alone. We would never go there. We always went to friends' houses or the motel, like the resorts. We often went to the resorts to be social. Like a group of friends would go and get dropped off there and meet there, and like we'd swim in the pool and have drinks and hot chips. They would often have discos there too, discos of a Friday or Saturday night. And yeah, anyway, I don't know. I'll probably chop most of this out because it's just not really relevant to anybody except for me. My friends, yes, I do remember my friends. And like I said before, it's very international, multicultural, so everybody was important to me because I just really loved listening to people's different accents and stories from their home country. And I don't know, we were just all in there together, and it was a really great year. Like it was a really, really top year, class of 91. And there were people there from India, Sri Lanka, New Zealand, Australia, Papua New Guinea, of course, all over the world, USA, Canada. And so my best friend was Nydia, and she lives back in London now, and we have reconnected on Facebook. Like there were heaps and heaps of people, and we were all in this sort of the same boat. So being expatriates and living in a foreign country and not being able to do the things that you would normally do because of safety, and So yeah, I think we kind of bonded in an extra special way. And Nydia and I had a lot of discussions, a lot of intellectual discussions about religion and a little bit of politics and, you know, social things. And back then we were all concerned about the ozone layer and, you know, how terrible everything was going to be and the environment. And yeah, we had lots of in-depth discussions about all that stuff. As an educator, do you do anything similar to your, let's go with 12th grade teachers? So I would like to think that I foster a really nice relationship with my students, especially my senior students in years 11 and 12. And that's the time in your life when you're really, I feel, formulating your ideals and your opinions about certain things. And I think that teachers have a big influence there to help guide kids with how they formulate their particular values and ideas about different things. Because my teachers they were really interested, especially the ones that I mentioned before, were really particularly interested in me and my thoughts, my ideas, and I think that's really special, and I try to do that in my classes as well. I think looking back, it's a long time ago, they didn't have the technology that we have now, and so one thing that I do a bit differently, I think, is I try to make my lessons more engaging than they did. Like, I mean, especially how I was saying before, the only kind of assessment that they went to was essays. We just did essay after essay after essay, and now I think it's really great the kids have a variety of different ways that they can demonstrate their learning, and I think that's really important and good and positive. Anything else about this grade that I want to share? When you're an expatriate, when you leave school, you leave the country, and I have never been back to Papua New Guinea. It was a really special time in my life, and I remember it fondly, and I had loads of fun there. I learned how to scuba dive. It's a beautiful country. Back in my early, actually I will say this little story, so this is not 12th or 11th grade, this is back, I think it was year 9, that we went on this really cool trip, Ungabunga, the river is called Ungabunga River, and we went on like a 3-day whitewater rafting trip, and it was so cool. And also another trip I remember, we went and stayed in an actual village, and then we just explored in the village, and it was like on the water, and it was really cool. I don't think there would have been any other time in my life, had I not been there going to school there in Port Moresby, that I would have been able to go on such a trip. It wasn't in Port Moresby. There are some villages in Port Moresby, but this was like in the outskirts, real proper authentic village, and it was a really cool experience. I'll end with this. I really love teaching high school. In Australia, that means we go from the 12-year-olds to the 18-year-olds, and I really like the upper grades. I like them all. I actually enjoy the variety, but today we're talking about year 10, 11 and 12, so I really like that older age group. I think it's a really special time in their life, and I really think it's an honour and a privilege to be able to contribute to that time in their life, and I'm going to keep doing it for as long as I can. Thank you for watching. My name is EJ Kafooples. My channel is called Kafoople Land, and if you would like to subscribe, I would love to have you on board. My channel is all about teacher lifestyle, and I like to help people learn how to live well, teach well,